time has come, ladies and gentlemen, to review a game that I have been anticipating for a very long time and closely following the development of ever since its inception, its announcement at 2012 as Ground Zeroes. This is going to be my review of Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain, and it will more than likely conclude the Metal Gear series review that I started back in 2013. Technically 2012, because that's when I recorded my original Metal Gear Solid review, but then I had to re-record it, and the rest is history. So, I've reviewed every single canon Metal Gear game there is, with the exception of Portable Ops, as I don't have a PSP, and I cannot play Portable Ops, so I'm probably just going to watch a Let's Play or some cutscenes from that game. But, all in all, I've played and beaten every single Metal Gear game there is, and honestly, this game takes a lot of influences from Peace Walker, and of course the likes of Far Cry with its gameplay. You have an open world, yes, but it's a little bit closed off because, especially in Afghanistan, it feels kind of like Far Cry 2. A lot of people are comparing it to Far Cry 3, but I say Far Cry 2 simply because it's more of a desert Sahara, or savanna, I should say, especially in Afghanistan. And, you know, the desert, the sand, and then you get into the more grassland parts of it. And while Far Cry 2 took place in Africa, it feels pretty similar to that. And in my first impressions video with the gameplay going along with this, I said that there was a lot of intense scenes. It seemed like it was the darkest Metal Gear game. For the most part, in the beginning, yes, that is true. There was a lot of intensity, there was a lot of build-up, but then once it gets further into the story, you just feel like you're kind of doing the same thing over and over again. It's kind of like, it's a mission-based game, and while the missions do have very, very, very top-notch gameplay, as you can pretty much approach things however you want to, it does get a little bit repetitive, it does get overbearing at times, and it can feel a little shallow, especially with all the subsystems in place, such as, you know, building up your mother base, checking all the guards' statistics, and choosing who to Fulton extract and who not to. And that's one thing that they did carry over from Portable Ops and Peace Walker, was the Fulton extraction system, which I probably will get into a little bit later. But first, I do want to say that, as with all of my game reviews, I like to delve into the story a little bit, and especially with this one, I feel like it would be a disservice not to. So I'm going to touch on a little bit of the story events that occur in this game in my general overview of it, just a basic underline of what is going on and what is happening. But I'm also then going to get into some spoilers. So I'm going to format this in part 1 right here, right now. I'm going to do, 2 parts of this review. All in the same video, of course. Part 1 is going to be basic and not give away much of anything, and then I'm going to give my score. And then I'm going to delve into a little bit of the spoilers, as like I said, it would be a disservice not to, as this is more than likely, right here, going to be the last Metal Gear game. So, one thing I did want to point out, though, is it says Day 1 Edition. I did not get this on Day 1. I got it about, actually, 8 days after it was released, so maybe they had some extra copies, who knows. I did say that in my assumptions video, but just reiterating for those of you who don't know. So there is a lot of returning characters in this game. Some we thought were dead. Others are child versions of their future selves in games that have came out in the past. This game, like I said, draws heavy influences from Peace Walker, adds in an open world, gives you a ton of things to do. There is so much to do. Honestly, a lot of this stuff does feel a little bit weighted or hollow in terms of the fact that you can't exactly see what you're accomplishing when you get things like fuel resources and minor metals and stuff like that. I mean, yes, it does go into developing new weapons and new supplies and vehicles and stuff like that, and supply drops, and you can choose and pick where you want to send different staff members to different teams, but when you don't necessarily see what's going on with that, it just feels a little hollow. You're just moving people around and getting stuff done, basically. But the real core strength of this game lies in its ability to put the story aside in favor of gameplay. Now, the story in this, like most Metal Gear games, is a little out there, but this game in particular has a little bit of a strange one, and I mean that kind of confusingly, because I don't know why Hideo Kojima went this route that he did with the story, as it does retcon a lot of things that happen in the past games that have happened in the future. Basically, this game is in the past, the other games are in the future. So it does retcon quite a bit, and it does kind of take things that you thought were established in games like Metal Gear Solid 3 and kind of flip it on edge, flip it upside down. Yes, you could consider that kind of like a twist, if you will. There were plenty of twists, but the thing is, some of them fall a little flat. I'm not going to go into the twists until the second part of this video. I'll actually say, hey, this is part 2, guys, you know. But I will say that a lot of these did fall flat, and Skullface, while he was hyped up to be one of the best Metal Gear villains of all time, was a throwaway villain. I mean, he was only in there for like 30 minutes total. And that can be actually confirmed by an article where the voice actor actually goes on record to say that. And one thing I did like, though, about Skullface is his ability to deliver the most cliche lines ever. And I mean this like Solidus. He puts Solidus to shame, and Solidus had the best one-liners pretty much ever. Damn the Patriots, I'll drown you fools for interfering. What's another one? I honestly don't even know. Burn, baby. You know, just the best and just most hilariously delivered lines ever. You're tougher than I thought, you know? Stuff like that. He puts Solidus to shame with his delivery of a single line. See your lust for revenge, or see this is your lust for revenge, and then he says, who? And there are so many remixes out there. I honestly thought of linking it in this video or editing one into this video, but no. I'm going to take this review as seriously as possible. So after Ground Zeroes, this is where the story kicks in. Basic overview is after Ground Zeroes, this is set afterwards, about 9 years, and you are Venom Snake. Punished Venom Snake, I should say, and you have a piece of shrapnel sticking out of your head like a horn, which is basically a symbol of you becoming a demon, you turning evil against your comrades. You're turning pretty much against America, and this is basically your downfall. This is the story of how you become power hungry, basically. And Diamond Dogs is a symbol of that. All these men practically worship you, and they're working for you, and they're willing to do whatever they want for you, while you go out like a madman, all villainous. And really, what is disappointing about the story is there's not much of a build-up to Snake becoming evil, or I should say Big Boss becoming evil. There is a huge twist at the end, but it really doesn't make much sense in terms of retconning. Like I said, I mean, when you look into the future games, Big Boss does not have shrapnel sticking out of his head. I mean, sure, he could have gotten it removed once the technology was there, as this game takes place in the 80s, while the next games take place in the 90s. So maybe he got it removed, who knows? But what about the prosthetic arm? Did he get that removed too and put like a plastic arm or something that looks real? Because all the artwork for the other games specifically shows this. So one of the things that I really don't like about this series in general, although it is my favorite game series and I really hate to say this, is there's no continuity whatsoever in the smaller details. But all that can probably be explained by human error. Snake thought that Sonny was a boy. He said, as long as you stay alive, he's safe. Then it was explained in Metal Gear Solid 4, he is a she. It's a girl. Sonny. It's a she. So that was a human error. Liquid Ocelot said that Big Boss was in his his late 50s when they created his copies, when in all actuality he was in his late 30s. Again, human error. You know, it happens. Maybe Liquid thought that he was in his 50s because that is what he heard. It's just hearsay. So we can kind of chalk that up to, you know, human error, as I was saying, but things that are explicitly right there in your face, like someone having a big gaping horn in one game and then in the next game it's gone, you can really only assume that it got removed in the most painful way possible. So that's what I'm going to go with on here. Basically, though, you are starting a front for Diamond Dogs, and Diamond Dogs is the new mother base after MSF, Soldiers Without Borders, was blown to bits from a ruse, from a fake inspection, in which they suspect Hal Emmerich Otacon's father, excuse me, not grandfather. They expect his father, they suspect his father as being the culprit for letting these guys in to blow up their fucking base, basically. So this game does a pretty good job of breaking the fourth wall, which is another thing that a lot of the other games did very well, was breaking the fourth wall in a way that didn't seem contrived or cliched. And it also does a very good job with the cardboard box. The return to the cardboard box that was for some reason absent from Ground Zeroes. Ground Zeroes seemed to take itself a little too seriously. This kind of opens that up a little bit more into a more relaxed yet still dark and serious environment, and I really like the balance between the two. This is probably my favorite game in the series with the exception of 2 and 3, gameplay-wise. However, they don't deliver the story in a very effective way, and like I said, some of the missions seem like they're going, too repetitively, I guess. You're doing the same thing over and over again. And there's even a part after you beat the 31st mission where you have to redo like 3 or 4 different missions that you've already done, only on a higher difficulty setting. Why? It feels out of place. I don't like it. But there are certain characters that come back. Liquid makes an appearance as a kid. Volgan, for some reason, makes an appearance as well. I'm not going to give away whether it's a flashback or whether or not it was, it's his voice that comes back. I'm not going to give that away until the very end of this video. So, overall, though, gameplay aside, the story does seem to suffer a little bit because this game was marketed towards a Western audience. And I think the reason why I say that the story suffers is because this is marketed as the entry point into the Metal Gear franchise, where you can just jump in, know what's up, and play for the gameplay. This is not the case. There is so much going on that remains unexplained that you wouldn't get unless you played the other games. So, without going back and playing Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker, Metal Gear Solid 3, Metal Gear Solid Ground Zeroes, especially Ground Zeroes. Ground Zeroes is a must-play for this to really know what's going on. It's basically the virtuous mission to Operation Snake Eater, to put it bluntly. So, and really, in order to play Ground Zeroes, you have to play Peace Walker to know who Paz is, to know who any of these characters are. So, it's marketed as the ultimate Metal Gear streamline, with amazing fluid gameplay, really good cutscenes, really good graphics, and good animation, and probably the best entry point into the series, albeit it's the last. But it's really not. It's actually probably one of the worst ones. Actually, the only one that's worse than this, I would say, to get into at first, to play first, would probably be the fourth one. Because it's basically the end of the series. It's at the end of the timeline, it's the very last game in the timeline, and it basically gives away a lot of spoilers that you wouldn't otherwise know going into the other games. So, overall though, I think this game does do its job, and it does the Metal Gear system, the Metal Gear series justice, and it's definitely a good swan song for Kojima to go out on with the addition of, where he's gonna quit Konami and all, but it is definitely a very, 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 very solid, see what I did there, entry to the Metal Gear Solid series, to the Metal Gear series as a whole. So I'm going to rate it probably a 9.5 out of 10. So, albeit the hollow gameplay and the repetitive mission structure, it is a very, very fun game to get into, and even though I didn't really care much for Skullface as a villain, or pretty much anything he did, with the exception of that "who" line, I'm willing to give this game a very high score because I did enjoy it that much. So, this ends part 1. Part 2 is going to get into some of the spoilers right now, and if you haven't beaten Metal Gear Solid 5, do not watch the rest of this video. So first of all, when I say that I didn't like a lot of the things brought into the story, I mean when Skullface specifically tells Snake on that stupid caravan ride, which is probably one of the most awkward scenes in the entire series, where they're just kind of sitting there in the Jeep, running to God knows where, which actually you've already been before. It was the hangar level where you first found Sahelanthropus, which is the giant Metal Gear that has the virus in it, and for Skullface's endgame plot, which I will get into in a little bit. Basically, you're going to an area where you've already been, and it's playing up this this huge grand scale theme. You know, the main Metal Gear Solid theme for Metal Gear Solid 5, and it's acting like this is like the hugest thing ever. But they're just sitting there staring at each other. And one thing I didn't like is Kiefer Sutherland does not talk. He doesn't say pretty much anything throughout this entire pivotal cutscene. He hardly says anything throughout the entire game, but it works for him, and it worked for David Hayter when, yes, David Hayter did talk a little bit more in Metal Gear Solid 3, but he was a little bit clueless. Big Boss as a character was a little bit clueless because he was a rookie, and he didn't talk, and he was a little bit shy. He was a little bit more wooden, I guess. He had a stiff personality. And I guess as he evolves over time, I guess that part still is there, so it makes sense, but still, have him at least say something to Skullface. Have him at least react to something that Skullface is saying. And one of the things I really didn't like about it is Skullface's huge plan, his big, huge plan, is to eradicate the English language. Yeah. A little bit of a letdown, isn't it? It's a little bit of a letdown because his whole master plan is to upload a virus into the nukes that Sahelanthropus can launch to rid the world of the English language. I shit you not, that's his huge plan. Because he hates Americans, he's going to upload a virus that will basically attach itself to your throat, and every time you pronounce a certain word, it will kill you. Or it will infect you with this virus. And if you kiss someone else, if you cough on someone else, it'll give them the virus. So, that's really fucking stupid. I mean, I'm sorry, but the huge reveal of his master plan was just some vocal cord parasite that is supposed to eradicate people who speak English. I mean, of all the plots, of all the crazy stuff Metal Gear has come up with, this isn't even just crazy. This is just kind of downright stupid, and this is why I don't like Skullface that much, is he has barely any motivation. He doesn't seem like he's all that terrorizing or, horrifying, I guess, or scary or frightening or anything like that. Yeah, he does some really crazy stuff and dark stuff in Ground Zeroes, which kind of foreshadow his ability to be this huge, big villain. But in all actuality, in Phantom Pain itself, all he wants to do is eradicate the English language because he doesn't like English people, I guess. People who speak English. And the funny thing is, Skullface gets wiped out and crushed under a platform and dies, like, halfway through the game. He's only in there for, like, a half hour. And then, Snake, Miller, and Huey each take turns shooting his limbs off before Huey Emmerich shoots him in the face. And I'm just thinking, what is this? This is dumb. Okay? The Sahelanthropus fight, though, I will give it credit. That fight is just, it's ungodly. It's a little bit on the hard side, especially compared to all the other stuff that has happened in the game so far, but oh my god, is it satisfying when you beat Sahelanthropus. And some of the cutscenes that follow are some of the most visually appeasing cutscenes that I have ever seen, especially if you beat him at night. It's a little easier if you beat him at night, and, that boss fight was a really, really intense one. So, I didn't like a lot of what happened. Volgin was also a throwaway character. He was the man on fire. Basically, for half the game, you didn't know he was Volgin, and it was supposed to be this huge twist, but there was no emotion, there was no passion behind how they revealed it. It was just, oh yeah, he's probably Volgin, because he wants revenge. Like, that's literally what Ocelot said. And not to mention Ocelot being a completely different character in this game that basically contradicts his characterizations in every other video game. But then again, we're seeing a different side of Ocelot here because we're actually seeing him interact with people who he's allies with instead of being against them. So I suppose there is a reason for that. I will say this though, the one twist that really did grip me and get me thinking about this game's place in the Metal Gear universe was the fact that the person you play as, Venom Snake, was not actually Big Boss. Big Boss was actually Ishmael from the first couple minutes of the game, who helped you get out of the burning hospital alive. And I kind of figured that because both Kiefer Sutherland voiced both characters, and I was just thinking, okay, is it Snake talking or is this Ishmael? You know, and honestly, until I read, until the end, I thought he died. They made it seem like he died in that car or in that vehicle when they were running away from the hospital. So basically, the way it boils down to is Venom Snake is the big boss in Metal Gear with the Outer Heaven Uprising, which this game actually sets up for. I think all the members of Diamond Dogs go on to become mercenaries for Venom Snake in the Outer Heaven Uprising in South Africa. So basically this does set into motion, makes the game series come full circle and all that. So if there is anything else in here, it'll probably be in between to fill the void of Metal Gear Solid 2 and Metal Gear Solid 4, like Rising was supposed to, before, in my eyes and many people's others' eyes, it became non-canon. So, Big Boss is not Venom Snake. Big Boss was basically out of the picture for pretty much the entire game until the very end, when they revealed that the only person who knew of Venom Snake being the MSF medic who had his appearance changed in the very beginning. You actually got to pick what he used to look like. He's the only one who even knew about that. And that was a very, very well done twist. They basically needed a reason as far as why Big Boss survived the fight in the first Metal Gear, and for Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake, they made two of them. And I think that was a very, very clever move for Kojima to go for. But overall, this is a great game, awesome title, 9.5 out of 10, but I do have some serious gripes about it as a Metal Gear game. As a video game, it's stellar. It's probably going to be Game of the Year, and I would not have a single problem with that. But as a Metal Gear game, it just kind of falls flat a little bit, and, with the story and everything and how it builds everything up. But overall, I do enjoy it. I did like pretty much everything about it except for what I did name, and I'm still going to rate it a 9.5 out of 10. It was definitely worth the wait, with the exception of the stupid vocal cord parasites thing. I did not like that at all. But, like I said, perfect send-off for Kojima, 9.5 out of 10. This is Midnight Strike 3625. Keep calm and rock on.